Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're jumping straight into a genuinely fascinating piece of academic research. We're going to unpack the deep, lasting legacy of colonialism, specifically looking at it through the lens of literature. We'll be breaking down a study titled Moral Decay and Social Hypocrisy, which takes a really hard look at Mohsin Hamid's acclaimed novel, Moth Smoke. Whether you're a massive literature buff or you're just curious about how history completely shapes modern behavior, you are definitely in the right place. Let's get into it.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the thesis context, outline the inquiry, track Dar's journey, break down the framework, dive into the evidence, and finish up with the conclusion.
Section 1. Thesis Context.
Right, so before we discuss the theories, we really need to understand the level of research we're dealing with here. This was conducted at the bachelor's level, specifically for a Bachelor of Studies in English, and it was carried out at the government Akhtar Nawaz Shaheed Degree College, KTS, which has a proud affiliation with the University of Haripur. It absolutely sets a high bar for undergraduate academic inquiry.
The researcher behind all this hard work is BS English student Mohammed Saifullah, who was brilliantly supervised by Mr. Qazi Safi or Rehman. And you know, this research holds weight because it was successfully defended in front of a very rigorous panel. We're talking an external examiner, Professor Dr. Mohammed Farooq, a lecturer from the University of Haripur's Linguistics and English department, alongside internal examiner Professor Danish, a lecturer from the host college's English department. That kind of panel ensures the work truly holds up to serious scrutiny.
Section 2. The inquiry.
Moving into Chapter 1 of the research, the author lays out three very specific objectives. First up, to examine exactly how moral decay is portrayed in this post-colonial society. Second, to shine a spotlight on the social hypocrisy, specifically within Lahore's wealthy elite class. And third, to investigate the deeper underlying connection between this moral corruption and the lingering ghosts of colonial influence.
And naturally, those three objectives perfectly frame the core research questions. Number 1, how is decay portrayed? Number 2, in what specific ways is hypocrisy revealed? And number 3, how is all of this connected to colonialism? Keep these questions in the back of your mind because they form the exact structure for the data analysis we're about to cover.
Section 3. Daru's journey. In Chapter 2, the thesis meticulously traces the story of the protagonist, Daru, in a strictly chronological way, right from the beginning to his bitter end. It's a dark descent that happens in 4 distinct phases. Phase 1 hits him with severe economic instability, causing him to lose his social standing. That drops him right into Phase 2, massive financial vulnerability, where he faces the total humiliation of begging his wealthy peers for money. To cope with that shame, Phase 3 kicks in, and we see him rationalizing really unethical actions. Basically, he makes excuses for his bad behavior so he doesn't have to feel the guilt. And finally, Phase 4 is rock bottom. He achieves this twisted emotional satisfaction simply through violence, specifically discovering he has the power to kill moths. It is a tragic, absolute collapse from a regular guy to someone entirely morally bankrupt.
Section 4. Toolkit and Framework. So how did the researcher actually study this for Chapter 3? Well, they combined 2 massive theoretical frameworks, postcolonial theory and Irving Goffman's performance theory. By bringing these together, the thesis argues something really profound. It says that Daru's moral decay isn't just a personal failure or a lack of self-control. No, it's actually a structural outcome. It is the direct result of living in a society built on colonial hierarchies where people feel this crushing pressure to quote-unquote perform and maintain an elite social identity, no matter the cost. To pull this off, the researcher used a rigorous qualitative design for their data collection and analysis. They did an incredibly close reading of the primary text, Moth Smoke, to extract specific data. Then, they applied thematic analysis to decode the social representations and the hidden meanings driving the characters' actions.
Section 5. The evidence. All right, now we reach the climax in Chapter 4, the data analysis. Let's tackle that first question. How exactly is moral decay portrayed in this society?
The researcher answers this by extracting some incredibly powerful quotes directly from the thesis. First, we have Daru pleading, "Could I borrow 2,000?" That line perfectly captures the absolute humiliation and the destruction of his identity caused by financial ruin. But then, as the decay fully sets in, we get the terrifying conclusion. He says, "It is the power I've discovered in myself, the power to kill moths when I feel like it." The analysis proves that moral decay is portrayed as this drastic shift from begging for help to finding psychological comfort in dominating fragile life. Next up, the second question. How does the novel unmask the social hypocrisy among Lahore's wealthy urban elite? To answer this, the researcher points us to this specific, very telling admission from a character. Most are genuinely crippled, and I'd give them a rupee or two if it weren't for the few strong ones. The thesis absolutely hits the nail on the head here, labeling this conditional empathy. It completely exposes how the elite justify ignoring massive systemic poverty. They just place all the blame on a few strong beggars. They perform the role of a good moral citizen by claiming they would help, while finding a highly convenient excuse to keep their wallets closed. Finally, we have the third question, the big, structural one. How is all of this moral failure actually connected to the lingering influence of colonialism?
The researcher extracts this short, simple, yet deeply rhetorical question, what can he do about it? This perfectly demonstrates what the thesis calls elite immunity. It is a direct colonial hangover. The society is so heavily divided by class that if you possess status, you are practically untouchable. Legal and moral consequences, they're completely ineffective against you. Wrapping up Chapter 4, the analysis proves without a doubt that these characters' behaviors are heavily dictated by the power structures left behind by colonial administrators.
Section 6. The conclusion.
This brings us to Chapter 5, where we summarize everything. The crucial takeaway from this entire explainer is this: moral decay isn't an accident. In a society that is obsessed with status, heavily divided by class, and deeply scarred by rigid colonial hierarchies, moral decay is actually a structural, inevitable outcome. The system itself is practically designed to force individuals to compromise their ethics just to survive, or just to maintain their social standing. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with a haunting question drawn straight from the spirit of this research. If morality becomes nothing more than a theatrical performance to keep your elite status, who really holds the power? I hope this deep dive into Mohammed Saifullah's brilliant thesis has sparked your curiosity about the invisible forces shaping our world. Thank you so much for exploring this with me today.